Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
I want to welcome you guys out today to episode 180 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. I am your host. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for listening, however you got here, however you're consuming it. Thank you so much for giving the podcast a listen. This episode, something a little bit different. This is actually a rebroadcast of a recent episode of the Mediocre Show when I had an opportunity to chat with Eric tomorrow over Skype. I had an opportunity to get to know him a little bit better, find out his history, find out what led him into doing the Mediocre Show. When I first started chatting with Eric last week, before we started recording this conversation, he suggested, well, why don't you put in the I Am Salt Lake feed as well? Let your listeners get a chance to know me as well. And I jumped on that opportunity, and I was really excited that he offered that. So I'm going to be playing that here in just a second. If you guys have already listened to it, check it out again. I was really stoked that he gave me a chance to chat with him. Hey, this week I've partnered with CenturyLink Utah. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I'm going to be riding around in the gig car doing good deeds around Salt Lake City. Make sure you're following me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. That way you can find out where we're at, and maybe we can do some good deeds for you as well. The website for the podcast, really quickly, let me tell you about iamsaltlake.com. That's where you can go and find out more about the show. You can find all the previous episodes. You can also donate to the podcast. There's a donate button right there where you can donate to help keep the show moving forward, help with the audio hosting, web hosting, whatever expenses podcast entail. Got some really great projects here in the near future, and your donations are going to help with that. All right, I'm going to quit chatting. I'm going to quit rambling. I'm going to jump into that conversation that I had with Eric tomorrow. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. So here's the conversation that I had with Eric tomorrow from the Mediocre Show.
So normally this would be the part where we have the Mediocre Show intro music, which is done by a band from Salt Lake. As you all know, it's Top Dead Celebrity, who've done the last 2 or maybe even 3 intros we've had. That's neither here nor there. We just celebrated the best of show that Justin from Portland did a hell of a job with. Really enjoyed listening to it. I've actually got a little bit more to listen to, but so far knocked it out of the fucking park. And then I was listening to it, and I actually had to text Troy and Hope. I was like, God damn, Justin made us fucking funny. He made us funny people. So big thank you to Justin for doing that, and to everyone that left a voicemail for the Mediocre Best of Show for 2015. It means a whole lot. As you know, we're just coming back from vacation, Hope and I, from our yearly vacation, and that's why the Best of Show happens. But then we were kind of scrambling for what we were going to do for a show for this week, the week right after vacation. And Hope just said out of nowhere, she was like, why don't you have Chris from I Am Salt Lake interview you? And I was like, that would be awesome for me, because I've always wanted to have Chris interview me, because I love his interview style. I love his show, I Am Salt Lake. And I just thought it would be interesting. It seems self-absorbed. When I sent Chris the text message, I was like, this may sound weird, but bear with me. Because it is a weird thing for me to ask someone else to do. But it was truly my wife's idea, so I'm going to roll with it. And Chris was so nice and said he would do it. So here it is. This is me and Chris from I Am Salt Lake, Chris Hollifield, with an interview of me, oddly enough.
Well, thanks for letting me chat with you, Eric.
Yeah, no, dude, I'm super excited. Like I told you, I'm a big fan of your interview style. I'm a big fan of your show. Even though I'm not from Salt Lake City, I'm fascinated with Salt Lake City and fascinated with the people that you talk to and the way that you interview them. So kudos to you, and thank you for doing it.
Absolutely. This is going to be a little bit different than I'm used to, because typically I sit down with somebody, able to kind of even look into their eyes a little bit and kind of see what they're feeling as I'm chatting with them. So bear with me a little bit. This is the first time I've done an interview like this. So it's a good learning experience for me.
Hey, it's fun. I agree with you. For years I did the show via Skype, and it was fine with Taylor. And then once Taylor got into the same room with me and we were doing the show, I was like, wow, this is a different wholly different dynamic. And I said I'd never do the show, the whole show as a Skype thing anymore. And I haven't since. But just like as special episodes here and there, yes, but not the whole thing.
So was it okay? So let's actually chat a little bit about that Skype versus. So you didn't do Skype at first, right? And then you did Skype, or
no? We started with Skype. The first two episodes, one was me by myself, and that has since been redacted from the feed and from all of the internets. It's been taken away.
There's no way to get episode 1 out there, huh?
I mean, I have it. I think I have it still. I know certain listeners do have it. It's not in the feed. It's not uploaded anywhere, but it's floating around there somewhere. But it's bad, Chris.
Well, if you ever feel it in your heart, send it to me. I'd love to listen to it.
If I have it, I'll send it to you.
No, I'd love to listen. I won't share it with anybody.
There you go. I actually sent it to someone on a CD one time and wrote "burn" after listening, and then he years later sent me a picture of it. And he's like, "I didn't burn it." I'm like, "You motherfucker." But yeah, so we started just the first two episodes. One was me by myself, terrible, realized I couldn't do it. Number 2 was my upstairs neighbors came and did the show with me, and then that didn't really pan out. It was totally chaotic. But then I went to my friend Taylor, who was in Portland, and we did the show via Skype for years.
And then now you do it right there in your home, and there's 3 of you on the show. And I mean, how do you prefer it? I mean, I imagine the way it is now is the way you prefer to do the show.
Yeah, for sure. In person is the only way for me to do it, and not to knock people who do Skype shows, because it's an art to do a Skype show. But once I stop the style of show that I like to do, I need that off mic interaction with people where I can, like you answer this question, or, point to people, or we can say things with glances that can't be done over Skype.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to back up quite a bit here at the beginning of chatting with you and get to know you a little bit. And I'm going to jump right into your childhood and kind of where you grew up and what you were like as a child, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Where exactly did you grow up? I know I've listened to multiple interviews, and for some reason, I don't know if you've ever talked about where you grew up.
I mean, here and there. I was born in a small town, the tiny town of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, actually.
Really?
And that's where my dad lives now. My dad has since moved back there. But before I was even, I think, 3, we moved to Huntsville, Alabama. We were in Huntsville, Alabama for a year or 2, which I don't remember any of this, either place. And then before I was in kindergarten, like right before kindergarten, we moved to suburban Philadelphia.
So, I mean, I would imagine you don't have very many memories going back to places before Philadelphia.
Yeah, I have no memories. I have memories of the day we moved into the house that I grew up in.
Really?
Yeah, I have like this weird, and I've always had this memory, and like it was kindergarten age. I don't remember much before. Like I have little bits and pieces of memories from Huntsville, Alabama. I know being near space camp always came out in my brain, but when we moved, the first day we moved into our house in Pennsylvania, for some reason we had an old TV, and I think it was black and white. Even might have been color. It was like shitty color. But we were watching some like PBS nature show while my dad was like moving shit into the house. Like that's the first memory I have. But it's all Pennsylvania really for the most part.
So you grew up in the Philadelphia area. I mean, did you grow up in the same house your whole life, or did you move around a lot from there?
Yeah, from kindergarten to like the week I graduated high school was all in the same house in suburban Philadelphia, a little town called Wayne, Pennsylvania, which is 13 miles outside of Philadelphia.
I've actually been to Wayne. I remember my years of living in Pennsylvania myself. So.
Why would you have been to Wayne, Pennsylvania?
I can't drove through it or something. I just remember seeing Wayne, Pennsylvania on a sign.
Dude, that's insane.
One of my trips down to.
Well, when was this? This was in the mid to late 90s. Am I right about that?
Yeah, it was mid to late 90s when I was out in the Wilkes-Barre area. So
okay, because we used to set up punk rock shows in Wayne, in a Presbyterian church. They were homeless benefit shows. Like we found a homeless foundation that we donated all the money to, and punk rock bands would come from all over the country and Canada to play these benefit shows.
Really?
So I don't know if maybe you were at one of those.
Possibly. It never, that was a lifetime ago. It's hard to remember everything. But now, do you have brothers and sisters, or what's your family life like?
Yeah, I have one brother, Scott, who does Mermaid Barbecue. He actually makes his own barbecue sauce.
Yeah, you've chatted about him on the show, I think, actually, now that I think about
he's
it.
been on once or twice, and it's always great when he comes, but it's so infrequent. We got to have him on more. He just gets hammered and does the show, and it's fun. He's my older brother. He's 2 years my senior, but most people actually think that I'm the older brother.
So were you close to him growing up then? Or did you guys fight? Or
I mean, we fought. I mean, we're 2 years apart, so we did a bunch of fighting in the early years, and then we later figured out. I guess like when my parents got divorced when I was in high school, we were both in high school, and that kind of drew us both closer together because we realized that we were the only real support structure we had because our parents were dealing with their own shit.
Yeah,
and so we got closer and like started really taking care of each other rather.
Was that tough? Like with parents going through a divorce? I mean, back then, I would imagine you said high school, so that was a good 20 years ago. I mean, it wasn't as common, I think, for people to get divorced back then, was it?
It wasn't. I mean, there was. I'd say like a handful of my friends had divorced parents, but it wasn't as common as it is now. And people certainly didn't talk about it. Like back then, it was it kind of felt like shameful.
Oh, absolutely.
So it was there wasn't a big support structure for it. I had my friends and people that I was in bands with and stuff like that. And my brother, but we were in high school. Like we were already in the rebellious, like being little dickheads stage. So that just made it, it kind of spiral out of control. Like we just got worse. Did you get in trouble a lot as a kid then? Rebellious. Yeah, we both did. My brother and I spent a lot of time in trouble. My brother actually probably more than me.
Like, give me an example of something you would do.
There was a lot of like drinking and fighting and skateboarding. There's like teenage shit, drinking and fighting and smoking weed and I don't know, just shit that teenagers do, but stuff that gets you in trouble in a suburban town. Oh
no, absolutely. So, were you a pretty big drinker then as a teenager, or did that? I mean, you say a little, you got in trouble, but
yeah, my brother more of a drinker than me. I think I smoked more weed than he did, if he even really did much at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, not a whole lot of crazy drinking. I kind of, that was like early days of high school, like right around, freshman, 8th grade to maybe 10th grade or something like that. And for some reason, like I got a little too deep into drugs more than I wanted to be. And then I sent myself to NA. Really? Yeah, when I was in high school. Yeah, I actually did that.
So this was a personal choice. It wasn't mandatory.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't like court imposed or anything. It was just personally. I was like, I need to get control of myself here, and I did. And now, I'm not clean and sober now, but at the time, it really helped me. It really helped me kind of throttle back what was going on because my life was getting a little silly.
Interesting, because I've always thought of those groups, Alcoholics Anonymous and NA and all that, to kind of be a bunch of hogwash, but it actually helped you.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think it's a good program for certain people. Like you need to go into it with the right certain mindset, because there are some people that go into that and then that becomes their new addiction. Yeah, which is fine because I guess it's a more positive one. But for me, it just kind of it centered me and slowed me down from everything. And I was able to walk away and not become a junkie. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. So how many years has it been since you've been doing an NA meeting then?
Oh, I don't know. I was in high school. I was in high school trying to figure shit out. I don't know. I'm not, it was there when I needed it. Yeah. And it wasn't like I didn't get too wrapped up in the culture of it, because it is a culture. So
did your family and friends know you were going?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
And they were pretty supportive.
Yeah, I mean, I got in trouble a few times with weed and stuff at school. Yeah. So it was kind of like no one told me that I had to do it. I kind of went out and found it on my own, and I was just like, all right, I'm going to do this. There's someone at school probably said, there are programs that can help you, and I was like, all right, I'll try that out, and it worked, and it helped me, and it kind of centered me and brought me back to like a normal, like where a normal high school kid should be.
Yeah. Well, I just know, if I was to do something like that, my mom would think that her family was falling apart instead of looking at the positive sides of it.
Right, but you were straight edge though.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So there's very little difference between the two,
I didn't have my first drink until I was 22 years old. So I was pretty straight-laced teenager, so I think my mom felt like she won the lottery there. But
yeah, I mean, I was on the cusp of being straight edge. Like there would always be something that kept me away, like smoking cigarettes or something that kept me away from being actually straight edge, all at one time.
So, I mean, how was like growing up though in your teenage years? Was there much of a straight edge scene versus like, I'm sure, was it violent or what was a straight edge scene like?
It's not like, it's not like the hardline stuff that you guys had out in Salt Lake City.
Oh, it's crazy here in the 90s.
No, it was, we always heard about that shit. I mean, there was a lot of straight edge kids here, and Earth Crisis would play every 25 minutes. And like they were like the house band on the East Coast, but there was a pretty big straight edge culture, but not what you guys had in Salt Lake City. It was like there was a bunch of straight edge guys at all the same punk rock and hardcore shows. They were there, they were X'd up and like all that stuff, but it wasn't like, I didn't see any of the beating up of people drinking and stuff. It happened, but I didn't see any of it.
But you never got involved in like any of the straight edge or vegetarianism or veganism or any of that?
No, I mean, I was vegetarian for a while.
Really?
Yeah, in high school also, I was vegetarian for a while.
How long were you vegetarian for?
A few years, I think it was. The one thing, in fact, it was probably more than a few years because it was right before I went to college and I was moving out of the Philadelphia area and I was like, dude, I'm not going to be anywhere near a cheesesteak. Like, I have to have a cheesesteak before I go. Meanwhile, I hadn't eaten a cheesesteak in years. But I was like, I'm going to be away from the glorious cheesesteak. I have to have one before I go. And then I left and I was like, why would I be vegetarian? This is delicious. So you ate a cheesesteak, but you continued to be vegetarian after the cheesesteak? No. That was kind of your moment. I'm done. That was the moment where I don't know why in my brain I was like, I have to have this cheesesteak before I leave Philadelphia. Right? So then at that point I had the cheesesteak and I was like, I don't know why I've been vegetarian for this many years. So I was back to not being vegetarian. Does it ever cross your mind now to be a vegetarian? No. I know that might be a weird question because I mean I know you love your barbecue and all that, but does it ever cross your mind? Well, maybe that would be a better answer. No, never. Really? Yeah, no. Because as I've gotten older and I'm a grizzled old man now, I realized that like you can do whatever the fuck you want to do in moderation. And it's not going to be super detrimental to you. At least that's how I view things. Like I don't have to eat barbecue every day to know that I love barbecue. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or same thing. Like I don't, and since I've gotten older and like I've tried to lose weight and stuff like that, I've started drinking less. Like I don't drink every day. Like I drink maybe twice a week. Well, it makes it a little more special when you do it. Yeah, exactly. So, like I'm having a beer with my buddy Chris. Absolutely. I'm joining you on that one, buddy. So anyway, but so just to kind of follow the timeline a little bit. So you're in high school, you're dealing with all this. Where did you go right from high school? I know you went down to Florida for school, right? Yeah, I did. What prompted you to go to Florida for school, or was it right after high school? Or talk about that a little bit. Yeah, it wasn't right out of high school. In fact, I when I was in high school, we had a TV station at our high school, and I was really interested in that, and like in making films and videos and stuff like that. So I applied to one college, and it was the Art Institute of San Francisco. And I didn't take the SATs because I was like, any school that I want to go to won't make you take the SATs. So I really put my foot down about the SATs, didn't take them. Applied to that school, sent my portfolio, didn't get in. So I was like, all right, well, then I guess I don't go to school. Did that bum you out that you didn't get in? It did. Yeah, for sure it did. But at the same time, like I'm the only asshole that applied to one school. You know what I mean? And one school that was pretty selective of who they accept. True. So like what I mean, I was disappointed, but like how disappointed could you really be? I wasn't really, my mind wasn't in going to college at that point in my life. What was your mind on at that time? I don't know. I mean, just playing in punk rock bands and hanging out and having a good time. Like I wasn't like, I need to think about the future. I wasn't thinking about the future at all. I wanted to play punk rock. What instrument did you play? I've played bass and guitar and sang, and I think toward the end it was mostly just singing. Self-taught musician, or yeah, and musician is a term that I would not use for myself. Like I played. What term would you use? I played power chord punk rock, like easy punk rock. So I don't know. I wouldn't say musician. artist, maybe. No, I don't know. Not even artist, but it was, I just played simple punk rock, but it was, I loved it and it was fun.
So do you still play music at all or no?
Every now and then I'll pick up a guitar and noodle around a bit, but I'm like I said, I'm just not very good at it. I want to get better at it, but I have a kid, so I don't have the time, and I've been podcasting for a million years.
Yeah, 10 years.
Yeah.
Which I want to get into all that.
Well,
here.
that's later in the timeline.
Yeah, we'll get into that later in a little bit. So you're playing punk rock music.
Yeah.
You're hanging out with your friends, playing music. You didn't really care. You got into school. What was the name of your first band that you were in?
First band was with my buddy Matt Kittensparks, who was later one of my co-hosts on the Mediocre Show, and it was called Elephant Chain. I'm not sure why that was the name.
Who came up with that name?
I believe Matt did.
Yeah,
because Matt played drums, and that's how it came about. Is like Matt, we were like, all right, we're gonna have a band, and I was like, all right, yeah, sounds good. And he's like, well, I want to play the drums, so I'll do drums. What do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I guess I'll play bass. How's bass? And he's like, perfect. We'll find someone to play guitar. But that's really how it went.
Where would you practice at? Like, whose parents did you make miserable?
My. No, in fact, I think those days it was Matt's house that we made his parents miserable. Or that one might have even been a theoretical band. Like that one I don't know that we'd even played it. I don't think we ever played a show as that band.
So did you actually ever get out and play music then at shows?
Oh yeah. Not as that band, but like years later. We started a band called 406, and we played a bunch of shows. And then later, Wanker and stuff, played a bunch of shows, put out our own 7-inch and stuff like that, and got on some comps and shit like that. And toured Canada. We toured Canada and played with Propagandhi.
Really?
Yep.
See, I didn't know all that about you. So
yeah.
You is the 7 inches out there? Can people still
Chris,
find? I mean,
I have one, and I will send you one.
No. I mean, I imagine that's kind of a silly question because it's not like they're out and about in distribution. But like, was it a self-produced record? Was it on like what kind of label was it on? I mean,
I made my own label and we put it out ourselves.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
So I know I would love a copy of this.
I have it. If I've got a box of them here somewhere, and I know it's gonna anger a bunch of other listeners because they want them too. As soon as I find the big box full of them, I will get them out to more people. But I've got one for you for sure.
Excellent. So you toured Canada.
Yep.
How old were you when you toured Canada then?
I think 18 or 19.
18 or 19. Here you are. You're touring Canada.
Yeah. When I say tour, I think we played 4 shows, which is kind of a big deal.
Well, absolutely, that's a big deal. I mean, how did that whole thing come about? Like, how did you get offered to do that?
Do you remember? You were a fan of fanzines, right? You were into fanzines?
I did a few of them. So.
Oh, yeah, me too. Me and Matt did one. So you remember Maximum Rock and Roll had the issue that they put out every year called Book Your Own Fucking Life?
Absolutely. I still have some of them.
Nice.
So.
Well, if you look in those, we're in that.
Really?
If they're from like the mid 90s, we're in there.
Yeah. Okay. So you're in there.
So we were in there. The band was listed there. Our number was there for setting up shows because we did the homeless benefit shows. And then, so we got contacted by a band in Canada and like left a message on Matt's mom's voice, like answering machine. It was like, hey, we're a band called Sumo Grimace from Canada. We'd like to come down and play your shows. So they came down. We booked them a show and set it up, and some other bands were on it. They toured the US. Like, did 8 or 10 shows, and then one of them was us, and we became really good friends with these guys. And so then it came to, we're like, well, we want to play Canada, and they're like, yeah, no problem, we'll set it up. And then, so like, little did we know, like they set us up to play Ottawa with Propagandhi.
How was that?
That was fucking awesome.
Great band.
Yeah, one of my favorite punk rock bands.
So, I mean, what made you... Okay, so 4 shows in Canada. I mean, was it tough to get into Canada? I mean, I heard as a musician, it's sometimes really tough to get in there.
It wasn't hard because I don't think we didn't bring... Like, we had like maybe a box of T-shirts that we brought with us. But we were like 19-year-old kids, and they want to know what you're playing. And then, we had a letter from the guy who set up the show because it was at a height... Like, it was like shows are different in Canada, dude. I don't know if you know that.
I have never been to a show in Canada. So
this was a huge show but it was in a high school gym. Like there was probably 1,000 people there. It was Propagandhi, like they're a big fucking band. But it was a benefit show, and it was in a high school gymnasium, like a huge high school gymnasium.
Well, we had shows like that in Salt Lake, though, and gymnasiums and stuff like that.
But like a band the size of Propagandhi?
Well, maybe not now, but again, what size were they? I mean, back in the 90s.
In Canada, they were packing the place.
Really?
Yeah,
really?
like sold out. But anyway, so it was a benefit show, so we had the letter saying like, hey, it's a benefit show. So we kind of we breezed in a little bit easier.
Wow, interesting. So what made that band decide? So you played Canada, you did some touring. What was the final straw with that band to call it quits then?
It was college. College happened. I mean, like Matt went off to Boston to college, and that was it. I mean, it was me and Matt. Me and Matt started the band,
and you guys kind of held it together.
And we held it together. I mean, I all but like two bands I've ever played in, maybe one band I've ever played in have been with Matt. So Matt playing drums, and then I would play either bass or guitar or sing or whatever. So
you mentioned school. Is that kind of is that when you decided, hey, maybe I should go apply for some more places for school?
No, actually what happened is I was driving tow trucks at the time.
Okay.
So like out of high school, maybe within 6 months, I got a job driving tow trucks, which was fun and like a lot of money for like an 18-year-old kid, like a ton of money. But at the same time, like as I was going along, and again, nothing against our tow truck driving friends. Anybody out there that does that, it's a good job, but I started to see myself like just getting stuck in the grind of it.
Yeah.
And then like there was older guys there at that company that had been doing it for 30 years, and they were fucking miserable. So I was
you knew you needed something else.
I know I needed something else. I was like, I need to do something that's creative. How can I do that? And then I started looking into schools for I was like, how can I be in bands and be around music and produce music and make money doing it? And I was like, I'll become an audio engineer. So that's really it. Yeah. Then I was seeking that out, and I found it. I found a school in Florida called Full Sail.
Right on. I actually want to let's talk a little bit about your tow truck job, just because I find that fascinating.
Yeah, man.
For a second. So you found that right out of high school. You're doing that while you're playing music, right?
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, just because I've never chatted with anybody who drove a tow truck, I mean, what was, let's say, the craziest thing that ever happened while you were a tow truck driver?
We had, and later after I started working there, my brother started working there shortly after.
Yeah.
So it was like we had him around and stuff like that. So I knew people. We were, kind of all became good friends. There was a younger crew of guys there. One night there was an accident, and it was DUI related accident, and the dude died. The person in the driving, the drunk guy that was driving, passed away in the car, and then we got called to tow it. So like weirdos, like weirdo teenage dudes, we were like, I gotta sit in the dead guy's driver's seat.
That was your first thought when you showed up on the scene. I gotta sit in the seat. I mean,
that's fucking weird.
Okay, so you're sitting in his seat.
Yeah, we're like, well, we had to tow the car, so we had to like put it in neutral to get it onto the tow truck. Anyway, we were like, we all kind of we were like, dead guy's seat, and then we were like, whoa, it was heavy, dude. It was actually a really heavy situation. Like the dude had just died like 20 minutes ago.
Was there blood everywhere?
Fucking everywhere, dude.
Oh gosh.
It was a bummer. It was a bummer, but that was kind of crazy. But like, we did a lot of accidents and DUIs and stuff like that. The accidents and when a snowstorm happens, when you're a tow truck driver, like that's like big fucking money. But at the same time, you're working for like 36 hours straight, like pulling people out of ditches and stuff like that.
So this isn't like an hourly job, right? This is based on how busy you are, is how much money you're going to make.
Yeah. So the company I worked at, totally shifty. The owner of that company went to jail for tax evasion later. He was paying us all under the table.
Is that typical in tow truck world?
I don't know if it is now. It was back then. It was like, he'd pay you a commission rate. So you get a base pay hourly if no calls happen, but that never happened. And then, beyond that, you'd get a commission of the calls. It was like you get 30% of how much you brought into the company.
Interesting.
So like, on a big snowstorm, you'd be out for like 36 hours straight, pulling people out of ditches, towing, snow plows that broke down and stuff like that. But you'd make, thousands of dollars. You could make $1,000 in 36 hours.
What?
because it was just so much. I mean, it was just so. But you didn't sleep for 36 hours. You went from call to call to call to call, like immediately right after you did not sleep.
And this was all in Philadelphia area that you were doing this.
Yeah,
right?
Suburban Philadelphia. Yep.
Yeah. And how long? So you did it pretty much out of high school. Like how long of a time period before you realized, oh my gosh, I got to do something more with my life? Like was it a year or two?
It was 2 years. 2 years. I did it.
Do you ever think about going back and being a tow truck driver?
No, God no. It was fun. It was a good, like I said, it was a good job to be like an 18-year-old kid driving a tow truck, like making really good money. You know, I didn't have any responsibilities, so I could work overnights and it didn't matter. And I could,
like you can make good money to today's world, though. I mean, that sounds like you can make really good money. I might go apply to be a tow truck driver.
You could, but it's a hard life because you're a slave to. Back then, it was a pager and a cell phone. Like, and the police called, or like we did some AAA towing. So like AAA would call in the middle of the night. Like you'd get 3 hours of sleep, and then they'd call and you'd be up until the next morning, and then you'd have to work the whole next day anyway. So it's a fucking young man's game, dude.
Yeah. No, as I get older, it's like, gosh, I need a more relaxed, easy job.
Yeah. Do you value interpersonal relationships with people and sleep?
Absolutely.
Then towing is not the job for you. So
anyway, Florida.
Yeah.
So you moved to Florida. You got into the Full Sail School.
Yeah.
Audio engineering, you said, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Is that kind of like, was that always kind of in the back of your mind? Like, that's the school. I mean, you mentioned doing that a little bit in high school.
Yeah. We did. I did a lot of video production in high school. So the school that I went to, they did, you did studio recording, like bands and stuff like that. You did sound for motion pictures. You did a little bit of video production, and then you did live sound also.
So what was it like moving to Florida out from Philadelphia? I mean, you spent most of your life in Philadelphia. I mean, yeah, you moved around a little bit from Tennessee and whatnot to Philadelphia, but you don't really remember that. So So home has always been Philadelphia. Now you're moving. Well, how many? 20 hours away down to Florida?
Yeah.
I mean, what was your first reaction to that?
I mean, it was strange. It was weird because, like I said, alluded to earlier, I moved out of my dad's house at 18.
Okay.
Like right at 18, I'm like, peace, I'm out. And I went and I lived with some friends in like dirty, like gross punk rock houses and stuff like that. So it wasn't as though when I went to college, it was the first time I was living on my own.
Which is a lot of kids how it is when they move to college and then they get that shock. Like, what do I do with my life now? But
exactly. And I was 20, which in hindsight, like if I had gone to school right when I was 18, I would have shitted it. Like I would have ruined it. You know what I mean? I would have wasted my time, and if someone else was paying for my college, I certainly would have wasted their money. So
now, did you pay? Like, did you have to pay for your schooling,
I'm still paying for it.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't handed to you.
Yeah.
So you probably didn't take it for granted.
Yeah. No, I mean, my mom helped out, and my dad helped out a little bit too. But I mean, I still have a student loan payment now, like still. So. I'm paying for it. So I respected why I was there. And the school that I went to is kind of an intense school. You get an associate's degree, which is a 2-year degree in 13 months.
So some long days.
So it's like, dude, it's like 80-hour weeks. It's intense. So
was that a little overwhelming at first though?
It was, except that like I've now since learned that's how I learn. So like full immersion in it. That's how I learn stuff. Like I don't do well with the like you're going to be in math class for an hour and a half, and then you're going to be in geology, and then you're going to be in this class, and then like your day is split up like 8 different ways.
What like how do you say you learn that's the way your best learned subject? I mean, when did you realize that? Why you were in school later on in life? I mean,
I learned that in high school. I knew that in high school that like the way that they that they worked out high school didn't really pan out for me. The high school I went to, like we had, I don't know if it was my junior or senior year, they had this like, they were doing this experimental program where you were in the same class for over half of the day, the same classroom. And then the teachers would like come in and out, but they would all tie their curriculum together. So it was like, there was computer, like it was like a computer class, but you do like computer aided design. So you're like, engineering stuff, and then a teacher would come in and do like the math end of that same thing. So you're working on one project from like 4 different angles.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I kind of realized, I was like, oh, this just makes more sense to me to work on something this way. You're working on one project. You're spending most of the day, if not all of the day, on that one project and like attacking it from different angles. Like that's the way my brain works.
Now, a school like that you went to, I mean, you didn't have to deal with, like you said, like math classes. It was just pretty much, I mean, straight to the source with audio and all of that.
Yeah.
You didn't have to deal with all the stupid PE classes.
No. Or your college. Well, that was high school. That curriculum of like the three like coming in all at the same time, different teachers.
Yeah.
But then when I went to college, it was structured that way where you'd have, Monday would be all the same. Like you'd have the like a 2-hour lecture of that one topic. And then you'd go to like a 4-hour lab or a 6-hour lab of that. So like you'd go lecture, you'd hear about the one thing they're talking about. And then they're like, okay, there's a band in the studio. Now you need to go track them and do the mic setup and stuff like that. So it was all in that same day. We didn't have math class. We didn't have that. They did have like a business class that kind of helped you work through contract negotiations and percentages and stuff that really applied to the entertainment industry versus like algebra,
Yeah. What were you hoping, like while you were going to school there? What kind of job were you hoping that you would land?
I was hoping to get into a studio.
To like record music?
Record music, yeah. Bands in a studio. Like analog 2-track. That was the time. It was like 1999.
Did you ever have any opportunities recording bands?
I did. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I kind of, like I said, when I was in college, it was like 99, 98. I graduated in 99. So Pro Tools was like on version 1. 1 or 2. Like it was really, really basic, but we had a class where we were just learning Pro Tools, and I fucking use Pro Tools to this day when I do the show.
Yeah.
And in my daily work, like when I produce videos, I use voiceovers, I use Pro Tools. So that was a very, like, I've been around for a long time of Pro Tools, but we were still doing analog tape in school too and stuff like that. So like I was hoping to get out and into a music studio, and I did right out of college. I actually, did you remember the band Good Clean Fun?
Oh, absolutely.
So I worked, Issa from Good Clean Fun and Ken Holden, who's been in a bunch of bands, Battery, Better Than 1,000.
I remember all those bands.
Yeah, a bunch of hardcore bands. They had a studio in Washington, D.C., and like I had met them, I set up a show when I was in Florida. So I brought that with me. Like I started setting up shows down in Florida. So that kind of helped me ingratiate myself to the community. Like I brought what I always did at home. Like I started setting up punk rock shows and playing in shows and stuff like that down there as well. So that kind of helped me out, but, so that I booked a show for Good Clean Fun, and I was talking to him and he's like, what are you doing down here? Like, cause it comes up like, oh, you're from Philly, these people. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm going to school here for recording. He's like, no shit. Me and Ken are opening a studio in DC. And I was like, no shit. Can I work for you? And he was he was like, when are you done? And I said, I'm done in whatever, it was late summer 99. I'm like, I'm done then. He's like, call me when you're done. Like, come up and check it out and see if you want to work here. So I did.
Did you have to apply then or anything? Or they just, boom, here's a job?
No, he said, come up, check out the studio, see if you like it. So I came up and visited and hung out, and I was like, yeah, I fucking love it. And he's like, yeah, fucking work here. And I was like, all right, let's do that. So I did. I started working there, and I was there for, I was in DC, and the money was not in studio recording, by the way.
Really?
Even then, it just started falling out. Like, unless you worked for like a big, serious studio. And I wanted to work with the bands that I knew and I loved, like punk rock and hardcore bands. Well, a lot of them don't have money.
Huh.
So a lot of them aren't paying for studio time, but I got to work on a Shelter record while I was there.
Wow.
I got to help out on a Blue Tip record when I was there.
So yeah, you had some fun experiences.
I had some great experiences. I was there for, I think, 8 months. The apartment I rented was fucking horrible and it flooded twice on me and like ruined my shit. So eventually I just moved out and I was out of money. Like the money wasn't coming in fast enough for the studio. Like they weren't really making it.
Yeah.
So they like couldn't really pay me to make it, but I was still going in and working and helping and, help. I sang backups on a Shelter record.
Really? Is your name in the credits at all?
It's not. It was just during gang vocals.
Yeah.
But it's still fucking cool. Like I got to hang out and work on vocals with Ray Capo.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wow, what kind of guy is he like? Is he pretty cool guy to hang
Very
out
cool.
with?
Very cool. Yeah.
Was that like, would you say that was probably one of the best things about doing it, or what was like the all-time best experience working in that recording studio?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was working with bands that I loved and dudes that I really respected, and just being in it, man. I thought it was the greatest shit in the world. Like, yeah, I wasn't making any fucking money, and I was broke, and I didn't fucking know anyone except those couple dudes. Like, I didn't know anyone in DC, right? It's only 3 hours from where I grew up, and I didn't know fucking anyone.
So this was about 1999, you said, right?
That might have been 2000, because I came home, like I went and visited the studio, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm in, and they're like, all right, come back whatever month. I forget. It was like, find an apartment and come back, and we'll get working. So I was like, all right, cool. So I went home and did a little more towing in the meantime.
Yeah.
Just to make some money, and then came back down. So I think it was sometime in 2000.
How old were you then? I'm trying to figure out even how close in age we are, because I think we talked about this. We're pretty close in age.
Yeah, I was born in 78.
Okay. So I was born in 77, so we're pretty close.
Yeah. So I mean, I was like, I was 21 when I graduated college.
Yeah.
So I was in, living in DC and hanging out with, people from fucking Better Than 1,000 and Good Clean Fun, but again, like, they went home to their families, girlfriends, and shit like that, and I went home to my shitty apartment and my dog, and I didn't know anyone. Like, I hung out at a pizzeria Uno. Like, so pathetic.
When did it come along, and when did it hit you that, hey, I can't do this anymore? Like, I need to do something else.
Well,
was it something inside of you, or did the studio shut down, or what?
I mean, the writing was on the wall, and he was just kind of like, dude, we don't have enough big paying gigs. Like, we're doing favors for friends. And like, I knew it was true. Like, all these bands like knew these guys, like they all knew each other really well, So he's like, we just, we don't have the money coming in. And I'm like, I don't have any way to find another job really here, and my shit has gotten ruined now twice. Like, I don't have anything left. Like, all my shit, all my possessions were like fucking destroyed.
Yeah.
And like, I don't have money to live. So like, I was just like, after the second time the apartment flooded, like I called the landlord. I'm like, the shit flooded again. Like, all my shit is ruined. I'll need my security deposit back now, and I'm moving back to Pennsylvania.
I mean, how did you feel? I mean,
defeated, dude.
Yeah. I mean, you knew it was going to happen, but yet you had this dream job that you felt like you landed.
Yeah.
But you knew it wasn't going to work anymore.
Yeah, no, it was fucking heartbreaking, dude.
Yeah. So you moved back to Philadelphia in hopes of landing a similar job, or what?
Well, I mean, I kind of knew. I have friends that were doing live sound in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So like, I knew I could come back, and then they're like, dude, we can hook you up. And I think I had been like sending my resume up to those guys, and they were like, yeah, we want to meet with you and stuff. But it was my friends all work there. Like, I knew a bunch of people there, so they're like, dude, you're in. Like, you're totally fine. Like, maybe it's not going to pay great. It was like a live sound and lighting company.
Yeah.
Like, it might not pay great, but like, it's a job and it's here, and you can, you have somewhere to live. But my parents had both moved out of the area by then.
So they're not even living in Philadelphia.
No, my brother was.
Your brother, okay. Where did your parents take off to?
My mom moved to Charlotte for work. My mother's Southern, like she was born in Tennessee, and she worked for an investing company up here that also had an office in Charlotte. So she moved to Charlotte because she would rather have been south, closer to her family. And I wasn't here anymore. My brother was here. They didn't really get along. So I came back here to where all my my friends and my brother, who were my support structure. My dad lived in Nashville. He was back in Murfreesboro, so right outside Nashville. I had no ties to there. So I was like, all my people are in suburban Philadelphia. So I went back here. I came back here, and I ended up moving in with my friend Matt Kittensparks with his parents. Like, he was away at college. His parents took me in.
So it's just you and his parents living together.
Yeah, and his sister, who they're like family. Like, I just say, like, it's just like my friend. It
wasn't weird or anything like that.
No, they're like my second family. Like, they always have been. Like, I call his dad on Father's Day. I call his mom on Mother's Day. Like, they're as much my parents as my parents are. Yeah. Well, maybe not. I shouldn't say that. They're as much my family as my real family is.
Wow. So you're living with them, and so what's the job like? When actually, you had a job at a granite yard, didn't you, somewhere along the line?
Yeah, I mean, that was recently.
That's late. Okay, so that's recently.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was while I was the show had been going on while I was doing that.
Okay. Well, let's not jump too far ahead there.
Yeah.
So you moved back to Philadelphia.
Yeah, got the gig. I got the gig at the live sound and lighting company.
And how long did that last for then?
That lasted for a while.
Okay.
That was
it better paying than in DC?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was definitely better. I mean, it was steady work, and it was a successful lighting and sound company. It wasn't the exciting part of the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Like it was corporate events and political events and stuff like that, but it was still the entertainment industry. Like I was still like, okay, this isn't a total loss. Like I'm still doing live sound. Like it's still awesome. So that was good for a while until roughly September 11th, 2001, right around then.
So about a year you were doing that?
No, it was more than, maybe it wasn't. Yeah, I guess maybe it was just around a year. I was with them. Felt like it was longer. Maybe I've got no, I guess it was into 2002. Nate the Beard, who listens to this, will know exactly when that company folded because I met him through there.
Interesting.
And he'll remember that. But so he could maybe tell me when that was, but it was shortly after 9/11. And the live, big events and stuff like that started like taking a hit on attendance and people booking stuff like that because people were terrified of having large group events. Also, the company was horribly mismanaged and they were running themselves out of business.
And did you know this was happening behind the scenes or
yeah.
Everything was, peaches and cream and then one day they're just like, you're out of a job?
No, the writing was on the wall because Nate was an accountant there. And Nate would come out into the warehouse where we were all like prepping for shows and stuff like that. And he'd be like, get to a bank quickly because there's not enough money to cover payroll. So it was like at lunchtime, we would have our checks and everyone would run to the bank. Because the company was falling apart. It was bad.
And he probably wasn't supposed to be telling you that.
No, he shouldn't have done that at all. But he had no loyalty to the guys in the front office. They were fucking him over too. Because he was the guy that was accounts payable. So when the dudes, like our vendors that wanted money from us, they'd call him constantly or send big dudes with like dudes that were like seriously threatening him to pay them. Like, so he didn't give a fuck. He told everybody.
So where did you go on to from there then? The company folded and I mean, were you out of a job very long or what, where did you bounce into next?
That is fuzzy. Oh no, I ended up working. I was unemployed for a while. I milked unemployment for a while. And then I ended up my unemployment was running out and I went and I found a job working at Vans. Like I worked for the Vans store.
Like in a mall
in a mall. We were in the King of Prussia Mall, which I'm sure you've been there.
I've been there a couple of times. Yeah.
We had the Vans store was in there and we had a 4-foot mini ramp inside the store.
So that must have been kind of a fun job.
It was fun.
Change of pace.
Yeah.
Something different.
And there could have been little weird jobs that I'm forgetting about in the middle there, but I went there. I was working with my friend Alex, Alex the tattooist. Now that I talk about, like he was the store manager. I was the assistant manager.
Wow.
So it was fun. It was, and I love Vans. I've always loved Vans, so that was cool.
Well, let's fast forward a little bit here.
Okay.
Just to kind of get back up. So 2005 is roughly like what I kind of want to get into, like the start of doing the podcast, doing Mediocre Show, and kind of what led you into wanting to do a podcast in general. Because, I mean, 10 years ago, there really wasn't a lot of podcasts out there.
No, and it was right when iTunes launched the podcast section of the iTunes store. It was soon after the iTunes store itself launched. But then go ahead.
Oh, right. No. Sorry, go ahead. I kind of interrupted you there. Go ahead.
No, so that like then like, an update happened with iTunes, and I was like looking at iTunes, and it said podcast over inside. I'm like, what the fuck is a podcast? Which I think people still do today. And I clicked on it, and I'm like, well, this is interesting. It's like, clicked one of the first ones that popped up and listened to it. And I was like, oh, it's like pirate radio. Like, that's kind of cool. And then I found, like, I started searching for things that I liked, like punk rock or something like that. And I came up with 7 Seconds, or Kevin Seconds had a podcast at that time. It was in like 2005.
Yeah.
So
and what was his podcast? I mean, I think I've heard you talk about it a little bit. It was just kind of stories of his life, right?
Yeah, it was just him like narrating his life, really.
So were you listening to much talk radio outside of this?
Yeah.
Then,
Yeah.
Or like more than music, or has it always been an even balance? Or
I mean, it was a pretty even balance. Like I've always loved talk radio, like morning shows and Howard Stern and stuff like that. So So I've always been a fan of talk radio and even news radio, like even that kind of stuff. I love. I love radio in general, but
when you found podcasts, I mean, what was that like? I mean, were you like, oh my gosh, this is like a gold mine? Because that's how it was for me when I discovered podcasts.
Yeah.
It was like endless talk radio. I can get as much as I wanted.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what it was. I was like, oh my God, this is never ending. And it was more because it was new and it was kind of, back then it was new and it was exciting and it was dirty still, you know, it was like the audio quality for most people was fucking horrific. But it was still cool. And you were like, I was like, holy shit. This is a fanzine.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah. I was like, holy shit, I'm listening to audio fans. So it's like things that I love, fanzines and punk rock and talk radio and like independent, like dirty talk, like not dirty like when we're talking about vaginas, but like dirty, like down and dirty, like real simple and like really great like talk, like people getting into serious fucking conversations, people that I didn't know, nor would I ever know. That was before famous people found podcasts, you know?
So when did it hit you that you should do a podcast then? Like what happened? Like describe, I mean, I'm sure you can't remember the exact day, but what inspired you to say, okay, I should give this a shot?
Well, I was like, hey, I've got this recording equipment. I've got, you know, I like what I'm listening to. I was listening to a bunch of different shows then. And I was just like, hey, well, fuck man, like I can do this too, and like I've got some shit to say. Like I made a fanzine before, you know, I can do this. Like, you know, it wasn't like I can do better, but like that was probably a little bit in my mind. But I was like, I can do a good job with this, and I have something to say, so I'm gonna fucking say it, and I'm gonna say and a whole lot.
A radio talk show's nightmare, right?
Yeah. So I spent the first couple episodes editing those out, and then realized it was a losing battle.
So you already had the equipment then. You didn't have to run out and buy stuff like a typical brand new podcaster.
Well, no, I mean, I was like hobbling together stuff because, a big thing we're missing in the middle of that, like I started doing, I don't remember where I was working, but I started doing live sound and DJing at the same time.
Okay.
So I was working like other jobs that I wasn't necessarily, and that might have started in the Vans days. Or maybe right after DC. At some point, I started doing live sound at some venues in Philadelphia and DJing, like doing a punk rock DJ night at the Khyber Pass in Philadelphia, if you know that bar.
It sounds familiar.
Okay, so I did like a punk rock, like, you know, DJ night there and stuff like that. And I got, you know, tied up with a promoter who would like get me all these gigs, DJing, doing sound and stuff like that. So I was back in the industry. Like I wasn't when I was at Vans and was like, oh, fuck, like I'm out of the industry. And then it kind of bounced me back into it. And I was doing a different corner of the industry, but still doing live sound in like punk rock clubs.
So while you were doing this, you were collecting equipment.
Right, exactly.
Kind of building it up a little bit.
Yeah, like I'd have, you know, I have a box full of Shure SM58 microphones, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I've still got them. They never die. Those microphones never fucking die. So you always have them. So like I always had the mics and cables, and then I had like a mixer that was from a club that I was working at that like it was fucking half broken down. Like half the channels didn't work, but like there were still a few channels that worked pretty well and were a little fuzzy. So like I had that mixer in my house and I started using it. It was like a 32 channel mixer that I was using 4 channels because those were the only ones that really worked. So, you know, I just started hobbling together equipment and making it work, and the audio quality was pretty rough back then. I was using GarageBand at the beginning because that's all I had.
Yeah.
So,
but now you're using Pro Tools, you mentioned. So that's
so once I had some money.
Figure the quality difference there between GarageBand and Pro Tools.
Well, GarageBand back then and Pro Tools now. You can do a very clean podcast with GarageBand now.
Yeah. I've naturally never used GarageBand, but so what were you doing, like DJ stuff? Then you mentioned while you started the podcast, or what was your work life like at that moment?
I was working in like I found like through a temp agency. I found a job working for the county, in like the archives department, which is fucking incredibly boring. But at the same time, I needed a job that I wasn't mentally attached to because I was still doing live sound at night and DJing every Sunday night and I wouldn't get home until 3:30 in the morning.
Wow, so you had a pretty busy schedule going on there. Then you had a day job. You're starting the podcast out. You're working on the weekends as a DJ.
Oh, I was very busy, dude. Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was you know, DJing and doing live sound and stuff like that. So it was like and then, during the week, but I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have, I didn't have anything I didn't have anything really tying me down. So I was just like, I need to fill my time with something, and I'd like to fill it with, I'd like to be creative when I do it.
Dude, I can understand 100%. That's how a lot of my life has been over the last few years, with just wanting to create and put stuff out there. So the first podcast you mentioned, I can't remember if we were on or off air when you were talking about this. It's just yourself. It's just solo. Yeah. Just Eric. Yeah,
just me. And I haven't listened to it. So I haven't probably listened to it in 8 or 10 years. Or, I mean, it's been 10 years. So 8 or 9 years since I've listened to it. I should fucking listen to it again.
Like what was the subject matter that you were talking about?
I don't even, honestly, at this point, I don't remember. I played a couple songs, like songs that I liked, punk rock songs. I talked about, I honestly don't know. I need to listen to it again because I don't even remember what it was, but it was me trying to do talk radio by myself.
And what made you think that you sucked by yourself? Like, why do you feel
it just felt awkward. Like I felt like I was talking into nothingness.
Do you listen to podcasts now that people that can do it solo and you're kind of a bit jealous of them?
Oh, yeah. I'm amazed by people that can do solo shows.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you listen to Bill Burr's podcast at all, but I'm just like, wow, that guy can go on for an hour about some of the craziest subjects. And it's like, how do you do it?
Yeah. I mean, I think now 10 years later, I think I can pull off a tiny bit of a solo. Like, I couldn't do an hour-long solo show by myself. Like, there's no fucking way I could still do it. I need the interaction with people like that. Like, that's how I find it more interesting. If I try to do a solo show, it would be so heavy on the editing that it would just be like, it would make no fucking sense. So, yeah, so I just realized I was like, I need people to bounce ideas off and have a conversation because I always liked talk radio that was conversational based.
What podcast were you listening to at this time then? I mean, there probably wasn't a whole lot out. So where were you getting your inspiration from?
I was listening to, there were small shows in the beginning. Like there was a show called Nobody Likes Onions. And they're still around too. But I haven't listened to them in years. But they were doing like a kind of, talk radio, like comedy talk radio. Like they were doing a very similar to thing that I liked. So I kind of did that. I don't know if you ever listened to Dawn and Drew.
I don't think I ever have.
They were in the early days, like kind of a big deal with podcasts. Like it was a married couple that lived in the Midwest, somewhere in the heartland. But they did a show and they were just talking about their daily lives, but they were funny and they were entertaining and they had listener interaction and stuff like that. And so I was listening to that kind of stuff and just kind of like building, man, I don't even know who else I was listening to at the time. Early days, there was a show called The Nobodies, who is, Jason, who's an author, Jason Bilbrey, still listens to this show, still interacts with this show. He sent me the nicest email I may have gotten in the 10 years of the show earlier today.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, okay, so doing your show, I mean, there probably wasn't a lot of podcasts out there to pick from. Like, how many podcasts were probably out? Like 100,000?
I mean, it was probably in the low thousands.
Okay, so you're going to get new listeners. People are going to find your show pretty easily. When you started doing your show, the first, let's say, email that you got, or the first somebody from that you had no idea who they were, a fan. I mean, how did that make you feel? Like,
it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was incredible because for the first time, it felt like you weren't just shouting into the abyss. Like, even though I had my friends there and we were talking, we were just doing a show just for us, but once you had interaction, you were just like, oh, holy shit.
How many episodes in was it before you got like some interaction from the outside world?
I'd have to go back and listen, but I think it was like probably in the it was before 10. It was maybe 4 or 5, episode 4 or 5. Like, once you started giving out an email address, like people in the early days, people felt so connected to it. Like, even more so than people are connected to it now, because there were so few. It was like such a little secret that everybody had,
Yeah.
So it was like, you get your email address out of your voicemail. We've had that same voicemail line since fucking 2005.
So that's the original voicemail line.
I've always had the same number. It's never changed.
Wow.
So, so you get the first contact back from the space station, and you're like, holy shit, someone is listening.
Was there any way back then because were you hosting on like a podcast or like a regular podcast server?
No, that didn't exist.
To see downloads, or you weren't able to see like any sort of numbers or who was out there?
I could see raw download numbers because I had my buddy Travis, who is the guy that I say goodnight Travis at the end of the show, is my buddy Travis in Alaska. He was in Portland at the time, but he's he was a hacker. If you haven't heard that episode where it's just me and him talking, that's a really good listen. But he had server space, and I was like, hey dude, I don't know how to do any of this. Like he's like early web guy. I was like, I don't know how to do any of this. Can you help me? And he's like, I'll give you server space. That's really all I know. Like I've never fucked with podcasts at all. I was like, all right, I'll figure the rest out. He gave me server space, and then I was like, is there any way for me to know how many people are listening? And then so he wrote a script that could tell me how many things were being downloaded, and I could look at it on a web page.
Was there services like Libsyn at that time or no?
Libsyn started in 2005 or 2006. We got with Libsyn in 2006.
What was that? I mean, when you discovered something like that versus having to write all your own scripts and codes and all that, I mean, did that just make it so much easier or what?
Well, in the early days, Libsyn wasn't doing your RSS feed for you. They were just hosting your media files, and that was it.
Wow, so you still had to code all that stuff.
We had to code it, and that was the other problem is that there was no websites out there to tell you how to code it because it was so early. Like you could go to like podcast forums and stuff, and you'd be like, "Hey, I'm trying to do my RSS feed. Can anyone help me?" And then someone would help you. But what I did was I went to another podcast, and I looked at their RSS feed, copied it, and then took out all their information and put my information in. This is the only way I knew how to do it. Because I was like, well, they are in the iTunes store and it's working. So clearly their feed is set up correctly. So I just copied theirs. And then later on, I found a program called Feeder that did it for you. And I've been using Feeder since then.
How did you not want to throw the towel in?
I did.
At a very young, stage of the Mediocre Show, though. I mean, even less than 10 episodes in. So you say you did throw the towel in?
No, I didn't throw the towel in, but I wanted to. I was like, I don't understand. I'm not a programmer, and a hard coded RSS feed is a difficult ass thing to do. So I was like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand how to do this. But I kept just like faking it until we got into the iTunes store, and I was like, okay, so I'm doing it right. And then shortly after that, I found Feeder, and then it's very easy to do with that program. So,
but you say you did want to throw the towel in. There had to be something that stopped you. What stopped you from wanting to continue?
Well, I just wanted to make it. I just wanted to make it work. Like if anything, like I'm a completist. If I set my mind to something and I want to do it, I do it, and I get it done. Like I fight until there's no fight left, or I complete it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, so I figured, I finally got it figured out. And in the early days, how the iTunes, like the podcast directory is now, how it's all graphics and you can see stuff.
It wasn't like that back then?
No, it was just text at the beginning. It was just a text list of things. And it was drilled down by like genre, like comedy or music or all the genres that are there now were there. But it was just like a drill down menu of it. It was just text, dude. So we had to do things like, you put an underscore in front of your name. So for the early days of the Mediocre Show, it was underscore Mediocre Show. Because that would bump you to the top of the list so people would find you easier.
You learn the little tricks of the trade.
Yeah,
huh?
That's what we had to do back then. So like we were like, gaming the system or like putting in quotes before your things just so you're bumping yourself to the top so you stay at the top. So the early files of the show, if people have downloaded them from back in the day, it says like underscore Mediocre Show.
Do you remember that? Like what is the date then of so 2005 is your first episode. Do you have like an actual date that you remember it being posted, or what's the actual date of that? Do you remember?
I recorded it in the month of July. Okay. I recorded that episode in the month of July. It wasn't up in the feed until September. The feed wasn't accepted in iTunes until September.
Did you forget about it at all during that time? Or
no, I was
working checking back and making.
No, I was trying to get it into the store. Like I was trying to like do the RSS feed, figure out how that shit worked, and like all this other stuff. But like I think the first time like I got the RSS feed, like I recorded it and then I was like, I will work until I get this into the iTunes store, and then I will move forward.
What were you hoping would happen? Like when you first started the media, like you're talking about talk radio.
Yeah.
But were you hoping, what were you hoping would happen? I mean, obviously you had no idea the direction the show would take or what would happen, but what were you hoping would happen?
I was hoping I'd get on the radio or onto satellite radio at the very least.
In along that way, I mean, when, like, has that always kind of been in the back of your mind or?
Yeah, well, yeah, it has been. I've always wanted more success for the show than it's gotten. The show is successful in a very, like, in a smaller way. Like we've had advertisers, we've made money, we've sold merch, we've made money, we've been successful with money mostly. The show doesn't cost much to run anymore.
Yeah. Because
we have the Scorpions of support, we have the merch sales, and we have stuff like that. But like truly, like the goal, like I wanted to be, like, success to me was to be on the radio, you know?
Yeah.
And we had an audition show on Sirius.
And didn't you actually get on satellite radio?
We had our show, like we went up to the Sirius studios in New York and we did our show as our show one night on Sirius. On the Maxim channel. We were in Maxim magazine too, so we were successful in that.
Did that bring a lot of new listeners in back then doing that?
It brought some. It brought a whole lot less than I expected. Like I was like, holy shit, this is going to be huge. We're in Maxim magazine. But it was so early in podcasting that people were still like, I don't know what podcasting is. Turn the page. Where are the boobies in here? Where are the boobies in this magazine? You know? And that came about because I had a friend who was a writer for Maxim, and he wrote a story. He's like, they told me I have to write a story about podcasting, and you're the only person I know that does a podcast, so can we interview you for it? I was like, yeah, of course. So
were there any podcasts back then making it like they are today? Like no. You hear, all these big podcasts that are, doing all these great things, but were there any podcasts that were actually, they found themselves on the radio, or they got something amazing happened with them, or was it all just hobbyists?
I mean, it was a lot of hobbyists, but like Adam Curry was making a career out of it. You remember him? Like,
I do. Yeah.
So he was making a career out of it, and he was like bringing people along that he liked and stuff, then they were like on a channel on Sirius. It was like Sirius Stars, and they had, they would play chunks, 15-minute, 20-minute chunks of podcasts at a certain time, middle of the night or something. I don't know when it was, but so those people were getting a little bit paid, and they were on Sirius and stuff like that. So that was success, I guess. But I don't think there were many people making like a legit living out of it.
Well, it's hard to measure success. Like how do you know? I mean, you've probably met cool people doing the podcast. You've had fun doing it. You have documentation of the last 10 years of your life. If you ask me, that's cool? pretty fucking successful.
No, it is. And if someone asked me, or is the Mediocre Show successful? My answer is fucking yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Do I make a living out of it? No, I don't make a living out of it. I barely eke by with what the show costs to do, and what, you know what I mean? Like, if we have a piece of gear break, I don't know what's going to happen.
Do you get people that ask you today, they thought Mediocre Show is your full-time gig?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for a while, like, I was out of work and I was screen printing and doing the show, and that was it. And the show was making, for a while there, we had a lot of advertiser money coming in and stuff like that. And we were making money. Like, I was working from home. I was screen printing and doing the show. Like, it was pretty awesome. So the show was a big chunk of the income that was happening. So like, it was kind of like a job, but at the same time, it was like, it wasn't really a job. But back to the success thing, I've met so many fucking cool people that I would never have known. Like all these people in Salt Lake City, like that I have no other connection to Salt Lake City than the show.
Isn't that wild how that happened?
That's crazy. I mean, I've flown through Salt Lake City before I started doing the show, but like when we went to Salt Lake City and we were treated like legit celebrities when we were there, like that eclipsed anything I had ever thought the show would be.
How many episodes in was that before you came to Salt Lake City?
Oh, I don't know. I can scroll back in the feed while we're talking here and see if I can find it.
I was just kind of curious because, like, what episode are you on now?
616 is this episode.
Okay, so 616. So, I mean, you were probably in like the 500s, I would imagine.
No, it was
maybe. Was it? No. Yeah, because that was 4 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2011. We were there.
Yeah. I don't know where I was in.
There you go. It was live in Salt Lake. Episode was March of 2011.
So talk about, I mean, how did that experience? Let's chat a little bit about that since, I'm here in Salt Lake City myself.
Yeah.
Because how did that come about for you to do a live show in Salt Lake City of all places, right? We
have to back up a little bit for that because we have a massive. I think it's our biggest market is Salt Lake City, and we're from suburban Philadelphia. Like that makes no logical sense. But the way it happened is a guy named Micah found our show somehow on iTunes, and he started listening to this show. And Micah played the show for his friend Jeff, and Jeff, who is Jeff from Top Dead Celebrity, Most Jeff.
Yeah.
And so Jeff started listening to the show and contributing a little bit and calling in. And then he was like, "Hey, my other buddy Jeff Michael Weiss, you need to hear this show." And so he played it for Jeff and Shannon and stuff like that, who were doing the Geek Show. And he was like, you guys, you need to talk because you guys are all awesome and you're of the same mind and you're very similar and you're all doing podcasts. So like he got us in contact with Jeff Weiss and Shannon and Carrie, and we started talking and stuff like that. And then in the earlier days of podcasts, people traded promos a lot more than they do now. So we were like, hey, we'll promote you guys, and then our listeners will push them to you, and then you do the same and you push them back to us. So we started doing cross promotion with Geek Show. Like I don't think we really understood how massive Geek Show was.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a lot of history of Geek Show. Like I started listening to Geek Show, but I didn't really know the history of Kerry Jackson.
Who was on Geek Show at that time? Because I mean, was Jimmy on there yet or no?
No, this was before Jimmy. It was Jeff. It was always Jeff, Shannon, Carrie. And who was there? And Scott was there still. And Lee, I think Lee was always there.
Yeah.
And, that might have been it at that point. But yeah, Jimmy wasn't there yet or anything like that. So then we started cross promoting with them, and we started gaining listeners in Salt Lake City. And then I was like, man, I love movies, but I don't get out to the movies as much as I'd like. Jeff Weiss, who became he called all the time and called in voicemails, called live and stuff like that. So I was like, hey, will you do movie reviews on our show? Like, I don't know if that conflicts with anything you do with Geek Show. And he's like, fuck no, I'd love that. So he started doing movie reviews on our show. So then he promoted us everywhere that he did stuff. And so it just gained, and we got this huge following in Salt Lake City.
How wild is that?
Yeah. And it's all because of Micah. Like that one dude, Micah, in Salt Lake City. Like very rarely can you trace something massive that happens in your life back to one dude. But like I can trace it back to that dude, Micah.
Do you still talk to Micah?
No, I think I've talked to Micah like 3 times ever.
Really?
Like he's one of those dudes who's just a silent listener, but like I'm not sure if he still listens. I think he does, but I mean Jeff still does. Jeff would know the answer to that. He's his buddy. But like, he was just one of those silent listeners that just supported everything that we did without us knowing.
And you're doing a live show at this time.
Our show
that might not be from. I mean, if you follow Mediocre Show, you remember it was a live show. So it was a live show every Wednesday night at this time too.
Yeah.
Wow, it's such an interesting story how Salt Lake City of all places.
Yeah. So then it came up, and we did a listener party in Philadelphia, and it was fun. We didn't do a live show or anything. We were just like, hey, we want to meet listeners. Like, why don't you guys all come out? Like we'd have a handful of listeners that would show up to my DJ nights that I was doing in Philadelphia. Like that's how we met South Philly Paul, and we met some other listeners through that too. There's another dude that I've become really good friends with that like I only know because of the show, and he lives in Philadelphia, actually in suburban Philadelphia now. But so anyway, like, we were like, let's do another listener party, but this time let's do a live show. So we were like, where would we do that? And I was like, I don't want to do it in Philly. Like, where's our biggest listener base is Salt Lake City. So let's do it in Salt Lake City. And let's see if we, I booked it like it was a punk rock show. I'm like, well, you can't just have one act on a show. You need two acts. And then you need someone to open for those two acts. So it was like I got Geek Show to do it. Then I got us to do it. And then I got, Troy, who's now the co-host of this show. He did stand up, and South Philly Paul did stand up at it. So
you actually organized most of the event then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. So you're trying to do this in Philadelphia. How did you get teamed up with Broovies then? How did that happen for you to do the show there?
Well, Jeff was friends with those guys. Originally, I wanted to do it at Bert's Tiki Lounge because I'd been hearing about Bert's Tiki Lounge for so long that I was like, I want to do it at a punk rock bar. That'd be fucking cool. We'll bring couches. We'll put couches up on stage. And then someone talked me out of it. They were like, look, that's really not the place for this.
Yeah, which Broovies ended up probably obviously being the better.
It was perfect
choice of that. So, you set up this whole event. You have no idea if people are even going to come or not.
Yeah, well, we pre-sold tickets because we were flying from Philadelphia.
So it sold out, didn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely did.
How quickly did it sell out? I mean, was it...
We still had a handful of tickets at the door.
Yeah,
because I think we undersold just to make sure like everything was cool, and then if people wanted to come in at the end, we would sell tickets at the door too. But I mean, it sold out. It was packed.
How many people do you think were there?
I don't remember the number. Futzer would remember the number. I don't actually remember how many seats it was.
So describe it. So you come to Salt Lake City and you start meeting lists. I mean, describe that feeling, because I mean, obviously, like you said, you felt a little bit kind of on a celebrity.
Yeah, well, I mean,
status.
People treated us that way.
Yeah.
So we flew in, and then like we flew into the airport in Salt Lake, and then you come down the escalators at the Salt Lake airport, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Very familiar. Yeah.
And there's a little coffee shop on your right that I always get coffee at.
Yeah.
When I fly in every year. But then you come down those escalators, and there was a group of listeners holding up signs.
So they knew when you were going to get to town.
Yeah, because we were coordinating with people, like local people, like Futzer. Futzer helped plan a ton of it. Like he's the one that got us. He's the one that got us set up so I could milk a pig. If you've ever seen that video.
I have, yeah.
But like he set up a lot of logistical stuff. I don't know if you were at the live show, but he's the one
I was. I wasn't able to make it, actually.
He's the one that booked the bagpiper that brought us in. Like we marched into a bagpiper. Like totally absurd. So he knew when we were coming in, like he was picking us up. We were some of us were staying with him. So he like got a bunch of people together and was like, they're coming in at this time. Like, let's all go out. We'll go to Red Iguana, right?
Yeah. There's Red Iguana. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, we'll all go out to lunch at Red Iguana when they get here. So like, we'll all just meet at the airport and, give them a hero's welcome.
How many people do you think were at the airport? Like 50 or 20 or like 10 or?
Yeah, like 15 or 20, maybe. I think.
And were they holding up signs?
Yeah, they were.
They had roses for hope or no?
I don't remember if someone brought flowers. I think someone, like one of the lady listeners, might have brought flowers for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was incredible. I mean, we got off the plane and instantly felt like at home and felt like man, these people really appreciate what we do. We went out to lunch and it was, 20 of us in Red Iguana, not a huge place. It was really neat. And then the whole time we were there, we were, given tours around the city. We stayed in Park City. We stayed, I think 1 or 2 nights in Park City, and then we stayed the rest in downtown Salt Lake, right near Broovies.
Yeah.
In Tiny America. That's not what it's called. Little America.
Little America. Yeah.
I've been calling it Tiny America for 5 years now. So it's hard to break that habit. But yeah, so we came out and we did the live show there, and I've fallen in love with Salt Lake City.
What did you think of Salt Lake? I ask this a lot on my podcast.
Yeah.
People what they, somebody like yourself who's really never spent time in Salt Lake. You have this probably this weird perception of the city.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I came in with the weird preconceived notion of Salt Lake City being super Mormon and super straight laced and super, not very underground, you know what I mean? But I knew there was a pocket of people that listened to our show that couldn't have been super religious or super Mormon,
Yeah.
So I was like, I knew that there has to be the underground of people there. But like my history of knowing stuff about Salt Lake is like Mormons and hardline straight edge kids. So like that's all I know of Salt Lake City.
But you get here and it's none of those things.
It's none of those things, and it's a fucking great town.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Salt Lake City. I mean, it's beautiful there for one thing. But also the people are so nice. Like the people in Salt Lake City, you know, you've been to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is kind of an interesting town with the way people interact with each other.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, it's not. It's the exact opposite of what Salt Lake City is.
Well, yeah, Salt Lake City, it's like you can actually thrive as an individual. People respect you. They support you.
And the people are so polite. Even the people that are silently judging you are so nice to you.
Nice to your face.
Yeah, which I'm fine with, dude.
Would you ever bring your show back to Salt Lake?
Oh, I'd love to do another show in Salt Lake City. I've always said if we ever do another live show, it's in Salt Lake City.
So what's stopping you?
Money.
But can't you pre-sell some tickets?
Yeah, I worry that we'd be able to sell enough tickets now.
Seriously?
Yeah, maybe we could. I would hope we could.
I think you could do 2 shows and sell them both out.
that might be a stretch. I'd love to do it. I mean, I would love to. I'd also love to do a show in Portland, but I don't think we'd have the ticket sales to support a show in Portland. And I had such a good time in Salt Lake City. That's the only place for me to do another live show.
Yeah.
Like we did another one in Philadelphia, like I think the year after or 2 years after, and it did not go as well as it went in Salt Lake.
But again, how do you measure success? So, you know,
the show was terrible. The show that we did was terrible.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I still think you need to come back and bring Mediocre Show back to.
No, I want to.
Back to Salt Lake, and you have my support, and I'll help you out getting people there.
Yeah, I mean that's what I said. Our one last, and I don't want to say one last hurrah because there may be more hurrahs, but if again ever another live show happens, I intend for another live show to happen. I intend for it to happen in Salt Lake City, and I intend for it to happen in Broovies if they'll have us.
Well, I'm sure they would.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would. So let's back up a little bit, actually, with the pod. How many co-hosts? How many different co-hosts have you had on the show then?
Well, we've had, if I can go through them, we've had originally Taylor. He was the first full-time co-host. And then we went to Matt Kitten Sparks, and then we went to Mike, and then currently Troy, and then Hope also.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is like when did about roughly did Hope come on board as a co-host?
She came on in the early, like when Mike started.
Okay.
So I'd have to scroll back and see if I can figure that out. But right around the same time that Mike started, is when Hope started being on the mic. She was always there. She was always kind of in the background. She was there when we were recording the show since the very early days.
You guys were dating out, obviously at the time when you brought her over. What was her reaction to her? This guy I'm dating does a podcast. What was her reaction?
Yeah. So at first, and we should her and your girlfriend should talk about that. But she at first, if you ask her, she was like, I thought it was really cool. He's doing something creative. I have to imagine that at some point she was like, what is this weird shit? And she listened to it before, like I mentioned it to her, or maybe she saw it on my MySpace page or something, and listened to it before I had even brought it up with her. She already knew about it, and she thought it was pretty cool. So
she was pretty supportive and
very supportive.
How did that? So she comes on the show, and how did that affect your relationship? Do you think it made it better, or did it? I don't know how honest you want to get with that, but
honestly, no change. I mean, it's fun to have her. It's fun to have her on. Like I think she's fucking hysterical.
Oh, well, I do as well. But I was just wondering the dynamics outside of the show, where she, maybe one of you says something and it stirs something up, or you never know what. We've never had a problem with that. If anything, it'll be like, she'll be like, why didn't you tell me that? I was like, well, because I was waiting for the show. I wanted to tell you on the show because I wanted to get your reaction on the show. Is that tough? Like being like in a place, that kind of reminds me of, I've talked to different people on the radio and they say, a lot of times there's not a lot of interaction outside of work, outside of what they do. And so you're at home, day-to-day life. Do you ever find yourself, I want to bring this up, but like you said, I want to tell you on the show, but you want to tell them sooner.
Yeah. I mean,
does that make it hard? Do you know what I'm saying? I'm probably stumbling all over.
No, I get what you're saying. It doesn't really make it hard. It just makes it like we still have our day-to-day lives. Like we have a son and we're married. Our 5th anniversary was yesterday.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. So we've been married half as long as I've been doing this show. But we have our regular like husband and wife stuff and parent stuff and stuff like that. So like, but like we've seen like weird comedy stuff. Like this is one I can think of because I just heard the bit on the Best of show, so I remember this. It was the Amy Schumer Milk Lemonade song.
Yeah.
I didn't play that for her, so like it was something that I normally would just like you have to hear this. Fuck, it's so funny, or send her the link or show her on my phone. But I didn't because I was like, the reaction we get out of this on the show will be fucking so worth it that I'm gonna hold it for 3 days until we do the show, and then I'll spring it on her.
So it's like constantly living with Christmas or birthday presents or something like that. You know? I want to give this to you, but I can't do it for 3 days. You know. Mm-hmm. But how do you know like where to separate real life from like podcast life?
There's not a lot of separation.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about a lot. I mean, we talk about our daily lives quite a bit.
Does that worry you at all? Like outside of like maybe a coworker or somebody?
A lot of my coworkers listen to the show.
Yeah.
So I'm careful with what I say about that. Troy is a coworker. He works at the same place I do.
How is that working with him?
We're in different departments, so it's not a huge deal. But and because Will works there and obviously Frank works there. So it's like a lot of people know about the show at work and there's just no getting around that. You know what I mean? So I mean, maybe in the back of my mind somewhere, maybe I'm editing myself when I talk about stuff because I know of the people that are listening or family members that are listening that I was like, oh, I don't really want them to know about that. So like there are things that I guess I edit a little bit.
But you, for the most part, you put yourself out there a little bit.
Most of it's out there. Like the major stuff is out there. And like, I don't really need to hide it. And like you mentioned earlier, if you think of it as a chronicle of the past 10 years of my life, I don't want to hide major stuff, Like I talked about my dog dying. I talked about my grandfather dying. Like it's just all bummer death stuff. But you know what I mean? Like those are big chunks of my life. Like it would be disingenuous to not talk about that stuff.
What was it ever hard to not like? Was there a point when you realized maybe I should share more? Or has it always been you sharing everything?
It's just kind of always been there.
Yeah,
because I find the comedy and the humor in day-to-day shit, and I find the entertainment in that and the things that I want to listen to. Like when I'm listening to a podcast or a show, like I want to hear about someone's like the background story of like I recently started listening. I mean, I guess not recently. Maybe it's been a year now. Joe Rogan. And like, I know Joe Rogan in his professional career as a comedian and stuff like that. But what I'm interested in is the backstory about what goes on in his life versus what his public image is,
So you can find a common ground to maybe connect somewhere, right? To be like, okay, I get what you're saying, absolutely.
Because I find the person behind the thing more important. And personally for me, like I don't have a thing, like I'm not a famous dude. I'm not a famous comedian or I'm not a famous actor. So like, I don't have the first thing. So like, I better have the second thing to make people want to listen to it.
Yeah. What I want to talk about, talking about kind of, getting behind the scenes, behind the grind.
Yeah, buddy.
You did that little kind of part offshoot of what you're doing. What made you decide to do those episodes of talking to podcasters?
To be perfectly honest, it was I felt like the middle children of podcasting weren't getting enough shine. And what I mean by that is like the people that aren't already famous for something else aren't getting articles written about them or aren't getting talked about. Like the people that are just doing it for the love of doing it aren't getting talked about in media at all. So I was like, well, I want to hear those stories from those people.
How many of those have you done so far? Only about 4 or 5, right? Or no?
Maybe a half dozen. I should have been numbering those. I could flip back through and count how many there are. But not as many as I'd like to. Like scheduling is just tough to get them, to get work out people's schedules and full-time jobs and kids and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. If anybody understands scheduling, that's me, I absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, I want to do more of them. And I like to tell the story, behind the story, because there's, people are doing the show like you're Chris Hollifield and you're doing I Am Salt Lake, a show about Salt Lake and talking to people in Salt Lake or people connected to Salt Lake. But like I'd like to, and you do a great job of this when you interview people, but like I'd like to tell your story, but like Chris, the dude, the dude that wakes up in the morning and goes to his day job slanging granite,
Yeah.
Like that's an interesting, because you'll always have the I Am Salt Lake thing, but like I'd like to know more about you as a person.
No, I got you. And a lot of times people don't know that side of of that person.
Yeah, of the entertainment they consume. Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. Hopefully you continue with it, and hopefully you continue to produce them and put them out there, because most of the shows you've actually talked to, the first couple ones I've actually never listened to their podcast. I know there were a lot of you had a couple of the old podcasters on there, and just to hear their stories was so fascinating. I was just like, wow, But
and I hope I channel even just a little bit of my inner Chris Hollifield when I interview these people. Well, but that's not. I'm trying not to make it like an interview and more like a conversation, just like a loose conversation. But I feel like that's a style that you excel at, but you still bring good questions.
Yeah. So 10 years of the Mediocre Show.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever think you would make it this far? Honestly,
no, for sure not. But at the same time, I never saw an endpoint to it. Like I still have yet to see an endpoint to it. So if people ask me how long do you expect to continue doing it, like I don't have that answer, because it's just. I don't know. I don't see a logical endpoint to it yet. Like I think there's still more stuff to talk about and more fun to have, really. And that's the key to it, is the more fun. And it's still fun to me, so I don't see an end where I'm like, fuck, I have to stop doing this.
Have you ever taken a break from it? Have you ever taken a month off or
no.
Or every week you've had a show?
No, I mean there's been times where like scheduling didn't work out, or something catastrophic may have happened where we couldn't do a show 1 week, and so we just didn't have a show 1 week. But I don't think it's ever gone more than 2 weeks.
As somebody like myself who, I tend to be a little anal about that. How did that kill you inside to not have a show up?
Yeah, for sure.
Did that eat away at you?
It does. It every time it happens or it doesn't come in on the schedule, it bothers me. And I've recently kind of learned to release my obsession about that a little bit, because the way we record shows now, it's tougher to get things scheduled and get them to come out on the correct day. So I try to get it up on Monday and Thursday. Sometimes it's Tuesday and Friday. Last week, because we had a 2-part best of show, it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So it's like I just have to be a little more fluid of it. As long as I'm releasing the amount of shows that I want to release every week, then I'm happy.
Well, I don't even notice, when you don't have a show, like you said, as long as you have the, shows in the feed, I don't even notice the exact day that it comes out, and I don't think most listeners do.
I hope that they don't anymore.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally if I don't have a show out on a specific day, because I try to have a tight schedule with I Am Salt Lake, but occasionally I've gotten people, I didn't, or a tweet or something like that, I noticed the show wasn't up, and I'm like, okay, I'll be up in a day, but again, it's people understand you have busy schedules, and like you said, as long as you're having fun and as long as where would you like to see? I mean, you say you don't see an end. I mean, do you have any 5 years? Like, where would you like to see the show go? I mean, do you still hope to get a radio deal? Or is that dream kind of died? Or
it's not that it's died. I mean, if it was presented to me, well, honestly, I feel like scheduled media, like radio and stuff, is not really the right thing for us. Actually.
Okay. Why do you feel that way?
Well, I don't watch a single television show live as it happens. I don't know if you do, but I don't at all. Not a single one.
No, I don't either. It's all Netflix or Hulu or
right. So why would I expect someone to listen to me on a schedule where they have to tune in a radio or a satellite receiver or even stream it online? That's why I stopped doing the live show. Why would I expect people to be like appointment-based media. Why would I expect them to do that if I don't do it? I don't do it at all. Why would I expect someone else to?
Yeah, it's kind of the shift we've gone with radio,
right,
and consumption of things. Actually, talk about that for just a second. The switch of live Mediocre Show to not live. I mean, was that a very tough decision?
It was tough for me because I had habits. You know, I got into a habit of doing it live every Wednesday night for so many years that it was tough to stop that. The habit part of it was tough to break.
Are you a pretty routine guy?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Like OCD type routine, or just kind of like you like pretty, strict schedule.
Not like OCD, but with stuff like once you start doing it for so long, for so many years, like at the same time on the same day, it becomes hard. It's hard to break.
Yeah.
And because and still occasionally I'll look at my watch or my phone and it'll be like 8:08 on a Wednesday night. And it's not that I'm like thinking about like, oh, I should be doing the show, but like all of a sudden at that time of day, even still, we haven't done a live show in a couple of years, that I'll go like, I'm supposed to be doing something, like what time is it? And then I'm like, oh, that's fucking weird. Like it happens a lot. So it wasn't hard. Like I prefer the way we do the show. I liked the rigidity of doing it every Wednesday night, but I also like the flexibility of like, if I'm not feeling it, I can just not do it that day. Like if we were going to do a show on a Friday night, I can just call Troy and go, or text Troy and go like, I can't do it tonight, dude. I can't, like, I'm not feeling funny, or, the kid is sick or something like that. That's really the truth of it. Is it's hard to be rigid with scheduling stuff like that when you have a toddler.
Yeah.
So
it makes it a lot more enjoyable. I think, probably not to do it live and
yeah. I mean, there was a level of stress when you're doing it live.
I could imagine. I know that there was talk about doing, because I was doing some different stuff, and some different ideas, and people try to, oh, you should do a live show. And I'm like, nah, I don't think I want to do that. I couldn't even imagine the first place to start with something like that. It just stressed me out too much.
They were saying live streaming show. You should do a live streaming show.
Yeah, with I Am Salt Lake. And I'm like, no. A few friends of mine were like, you should do a live show. And I'm like, I couldn't even imagine doing that. So props to you for doing it for so long.
I think, well, it was a different time. I think you doing a live show on a stage, doing your interview show live on a stage would be fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
Not every single show, but like, once every month, once every couple months, do, one that'll bring a bunch of people into a theater to watch it, I think it would be fascinating to watch you work, is what I'm saying.
Have you guys ever thought about like Skyping or like, doing Periscope? I know a lot of podcasters do Periscope. Have you guys ever thought about doing that with your show?
Troy's been messing around with Periscope recently, so I'm assuming that next time we record shows, he'll do a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But I've never, like, I don't really understand Periscope. I haven't checked it out really yet, so
it's just like a webcam, really.
Right. So I mean, I'll check into it, but maybe the Periscope thing, because you can just do little short chunks. You don't have to do the whole thing. But like the days of live streaming, what we do is fucking over. Like, yeah. It didn't work. It didn't, it worked for when we were doing it, but like for now, it's not gonna pan out, because I don't have a specific time to tell people. And I know Periscope works where it'll just like send people like, hey, we're doing it now. And you can look at it right when it's happening. So that might be cool, but it's not going to be the whole show.
Yeah, look into doing Periscope, because I mean, you send a tweet out and people can join in and even interact with you a little bit.
Yeah, dude, we'll definitely. I'm assuming the next time we record, we'll fuck with that, because Troy has it on his phone. So if you're Periscope people, find Troy on there, because we'll I'm sure do some stuff. But I want to do. I mean, to answer your question about 5 years, I don't actually I have no idea. I want to do more video stuff. I want to do more video content. Because it's just fun. But like, I don't know where it's going to be. Like, and I'm not, for the first time in the history of the show, like, I'm not stressing where it'll be. It'll be wherever it is in 5 years, and it'll probably still be fun. It might not exist in 5 years. And that just means that it stopped being fun. So we stopped doing it. But hopefully it'll still be going, and we'll still be having a good time. But I have no idea where that will lead us.
Well, sometimes that's the best route to go, is just to kind of see where it flows and let it take its form of its own, a shape of its own. Now, you mentioned video. That's your day job now, right? Doing video stuff.
It is, yeah. I do full-time video production, videographer, editing, the whole deal.
And listening to you talk about it, I mean, it sounds like it's actually a job you do enjoy.
Yeah, I fucking love it.
And do you think, but by that though, like versus like in the beginning of doing the show, you were in a job that you didn't like so much. Yeah. So do you think that kind of prompted you, like, oh, okay, this is my way out. Doing the Mediocre Show is my way out of that 9-to-5 grind.
Yeah, you are absolutely right on that. And I didn't really think about it that way until you said it just now. But absolutely, that was it. It was the Mediocre Show was my way to get out of where I was at. And now that I don't, like, I'm a lot more loose about it. I'm a lot more like, hey, it's still fun and we're still doing a thing. Like, I'm not worried about like, ooh, I'm not checking the numbers constantly, because it doesn't matter, because I really enjoy what I do and I really enjoy the company that I work for. And I really enjoy my family life. So it's like, I don't need to escape anymore. So now it's back to being just a super fun thing that I don't have to try to prove. I'm not out to prove anything anymore.
Don't you think at the end of the day that actually makes a better quality show?
I hope so.
Because you can be a little more honest, even. You can just kind of, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it is. You tell me, is it a better quality show now or when I hated my day job? Like, that's something that someone else would have to answer. Like, I don't know. I think we're doing some of the best stuff we've ever done currently, but I don't know. From a listener standpoint, I don't know if that's true.
Well, I think you've progressed as people, though, too. You know, you've grown together. You've matured. 10 years of doing a show. Of course, you can go nowhere but up. I
mean, I was in my mid-20s when I started doing the show. Now I'm in my mid-30s. Well, mid to late 30s, I guess.
Have you ever actually brought Brock on an episode? I'm trying to think about that. No, have you had him on a show? Like him saying hello at all, or no?
I don't think we have. Which we should.
You should. Yeah. How is that being a dad?
Fucking awesome. It's the greatest.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not even just saying that because I have to. I don't have to. It's fucking awesome. And it's hard. It's hard sometimes. Like, dealing with a headstrong 3-year-old is tough. But it's one of the most rewarding and awesome things I've ever done.
It's definitely fun to, over the last few years of listening to the show, just listen to you guys talk about him, and as he grows up, just the stuff you decide to share, and then through your Instagram and different social medias to kind of see pictures, you feel that connection. Even though I've never met him.
Yeah.
It's was that kind of a tough decision to share photos? Because I know some people, maybe won't share photos of their kids.
I mean, I don't have a hard time with it. We all share so much of our lives online, and the blurring of the line of online versus real life. Like, online is real life.
It is, yeah.
So like, why? I mean, I'm proud of my kid. I'm proud of my wife. I'm proud of my family. Why not share it all? Like, I think we have such a close connection with listeners and friends and stuff like that it's like, hey, this is my kid. Like, why can't you know my kid?
Yeah, and I, as somebody who enjoys looking and watching, I appreciate you sharing his life.
I mean, we're doing a show where we talk about our lives and our kid and everything that we do all the time. So why would we? For us, why, at least this is my thought behind it, is like, why would I block like that one part of it? Like, I talk about him a lot on the show. I mean, hopefully not too much, but like, why would I just block the visual aspect of it? Like, I tell you all about when he poops, but I can't see a picture of him. That's out of line. You know what I mean? Like, that would be silly.
So with that in mind of sharing everything, is there anything that you haven't shared? Something that maybe nobody knows anything about, maybe, that nobody knows about Eric, kind of that, or would you say everything's kind of been out there? No, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that question. But
I don't know, like anything? Deep dark secrets. Like, I don't really have a whole lot of those. If someone asks the question, like, I'll tell them. Like, if they really want to know, like, there's not anything like any big secret in my life or anything like that I can really think of. there's moments in my life that I didn't go into great detail with, like just recently our dog passed away.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I mentioned it and I made jokes about the dog being the Highlander dog because there can be only one, like stuff like that. But like, I didn't really get into how upsetting it was when we had to put her down. Like, I didn't get into that because I just like, I think like there's so much heavy shit going on and people have so much more like heavy real problems with like humans dying and stuff that like I don't really need to share it. Like, it was kind of a personal moment. Like, I don't need to get into the nitty gritty of how awful it was,
No, I understand completely. But anything else you want to talk about before I completely let you go? I mean,
we can't end on the dead dog.
Oh, well, yeah, no, absolutely. You can't. Well, let's talk podcasts for a second.
Okay.
Do you listen to very many podcasts?
Yeah, I listen to a bunch of podcasts.
What are a few of your favorites?
You're gonna go, oh no, but really, truly, yours is one of the. I Am Salt Lake is one of the first ones in my weekly listens. When it pops up, it's one of the first ones I go to.
And I want to thank this actually publicly. I want to thank you for all your support that you've given.
Yeah.
Given me with the podcast, because there's been plenty of times that I've wanted to throw the towel in, but
no, I'm glad that you haven't. I honestly, and I'm not just waxing your car because we're talking right now. I honestly love your show. I'm a little bit behind because of vacation, but I'll catch up. Don't worry. So like I've got I'm just gonna look at my podcast app. I've got I Am Salt Lake is one of my favorites. Anything that Izzy Rock does, Tales from the Hard Side and On the Block, I fucking love. Let's see, Geek Show, Bad Parenting Podcast, Justin, who just did the Best of show. I listened to that. There's a whole bunch more. I mean, like famous people podcasts like Joe Rogan. I listen to that. I listen to, and I'm not a huge fan of like a whole bunch of the stuff going on famous people doing podcasts, but one I've found recently that I really do like, and sadly it's over now. It's called By the Way, in conversation with Jeff. Why can't I find it? Jeff Garland.
Oh, I've listened to a few episodes of that. Actually, I think, was it Henry Rollins was on an episode of that? What, if I'm not mistaken?
I don't know. I don't remember if Henry was on there. But I've listened to a whole bunch of those. He only did like 30, 35 of them, and then he stopped doing them. Okay, which was like really upsetting. So I've listened to those a bunch of times. Henry Rollins is doing a podcast now.
A fantastic podcast.
That's fucking awesome. There hasn't been one recently, which is a little bit of a bummer since June. But another one that I enjoy is on the Death Squad podcast. On their feed is the Kill Tony podcast. Have you heard those? I
haven't, no. And I imagine they're good if you're recommending it.
Well, what it is they take, and it's live at a comedy club because they're a bunch of comedians. Tony Hinchcliffe sets up this thing, and it's in I think it's in the Comedy Store, and they do it. It's one night a week, and they have comedians come in, and they do 1 minute of comedy. They draw names out of a hat. They do 1 minute of comedy, and then Tony Hinchcliffe and two other successful comics, critique what they do. And it's fascinating. Like, if you like stand-up comedy, it's a really great listen.
I'll have to check that out. But
so that's your view. I mean, I've got more that I listen to, but those are just a few of them.
What's your biggest like pet peeve with podcasts? Like podcasts today versus like 10 years ago. What like you mentioned famous people a lot. I hear that out of your voice. Yeah. What's your biggest pet peeve with all of the whole podcasting thing?
Well, I feel like there's not a good enough way for people who aren't famous to get known as podcasts. Like, I think there's a lot of people out there that are not previously famous from other things that are doing great podcasts, that it's hard for those people to get noticed, because if you go in as someone that's uninitiated in podcasts and you go like, okay, I want to listen to a comedy podcast, you go to the comedy podcast section and you see a bunch of names like I like Joe Rogan, but like you see Joe Rogan's name there, you see all these famous comedians that from TV and stand-up specials and stuff like that. You're gonna likely listen to them because you're like, oh, I know, I have name recognition, I'm gonna listen to them, right?
Yeah. And
again, I spent a long time not listening to those podcasts because I held a grudge because they were already famous, And now I've started listening, but like, all right, I can get over that. Let me listen to some of these shows, and I found great shows. Like, I love Joe Rogan's show. Like, I really fucking love it. And I didn't listen to that for years because I was mad about it. It's insanely so. I shouldn't have been.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you regret all those years of not listening?
No, because I stand behind. I stand behind why I was upset about it, but just like limiting myself from enjoying that content that they made is nonsense. You know what I mean? Like I cut myself out of that, and like I shouldn't have, but like I don't regret it. Like there's nothing I can do to go back and fix that, and I'm not going to listen to the entire back catalog because they do a lot of shows.
Well, they're 3-hour shows.
Exactly.
It's like, how do you keep up with all that? You know?
Yeah. Well, the truth is I listen to his shows when it's people that I'm interested in hearing about. I don't listen to every single one. Like with an independent show like your show, I listen to every single one because if you're interviewing them, there's a reason you're interviewing. You find them interesting. I will probably find them interesting. With him, like I don't find MMA fighters, like interviews with MMA fighters. Like I'm not into that. So like I'm not going to listen to that. Like I'll listen to the comedians and the actors and stuff like that, but I'm not going to listen to the MMA stuff.
Yeah.
So as far as pet peeves go, like that frustrates me a little bit about the podcast thing. It's still a problem. Like there's nowhere for the independent guy to get their shine because iTunes isn't doing it. And like, how do you do that? So I don't know the answer to that, but it frustrates me. The other pet peeve, if I have a pet peeve with podcasts, it's when people burp on the microphone.
That gets a little aggravating for myself as well, so I can see why you say that.
It is. I find it infuriating, and it will make me unsubscribe from a show if I hear it a bunch. Like it just drives me. Like I don't want that sound in my ears.
Yeah, it's like if you're not going to respect me as a listener to not burp in my ears, I'm not going to respect listening to your show. So
yeah, exactly. And I don't like, it's just one of those things. Like it's a sound. I don't care if you fucking burp around me in person. Like I don't give a shit. But if you're producing entertainment and some kind of content, it's horribly unprofessional and gross.
Before I do actually completely let you go, and then I'm going to let you go. I know it's getting late out there.
No, it's all good.
With what you're doing. I wanted to actually touch base, and I didn't get a chance to screen printing. You've talked about doing screen printing. I know you screen print all your own shirts and all your merch. What even got you involved in screen printing?
I didn't. It was something I did in high school.
Okay.
And then we made punk rock band T-shirts and we screen printed those. And then like later on when I was out of work and I was like thinking of ways I was like, well, I could start a screen printing company. So I did.
And did you like buy the setup or did you put it together yourself or what?
No, I bought it. I found it on Craigslist. Like I found the setup that I wanted to get online and I was going to buy it. And then I was like, well, I'll just keep an eye on Craigslist for a few weeks and see if one pops up, waiting on a tax return to come in. And then one popped up with the exact everything that I was going to get. So I bought it off a dude at Craigslist and it was local. I didn't have to pay freight. It was awesome.
Yeah, because that's one thing I've always, I've admired. I was like, yeah, this guy, he does all his own, shirt designs and well, not that the listeners have designed a lot of your the shirt designs. But,
I've done them too, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's the punk rock mentality, and you have it too. So like you get it, and you like, fuck, that's cool, because it's the whole like DIY punk rock thing that you and I grew up in.
Yeah. So. Do you ever see yourself hiring that out, or is that going to kind of be as long as you can do it? I guess.
No, we're selling it.
You're selling your screen printer.
Yeah, we're selling all the gear to do it. Like I don't have time for it anymore. Like work is requesting more of me and more travel time and stuff like that. So I don't have time to print because it was just me. It was just me and Hope printing. So like if I'm not home to do it, and when I'm home, I'd rather spend it with my family now.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to keep doing it. So we're going to end up selling all the gear. And like, we have a couple clients that I'm going to keep and I'll probably subcontract them out if that's okay with them. And I'll just manage the printing of it. And then just take barely any money out of it, but just a little bit for my time. But, or if they don't want to do that, that's fine too. But that, and then like, I'll sub out the printing that we do for the show to someone else that I know. Like, I know a lot of people that do screen printing, so it's not a problem.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's like life is changing, and we've had that for 8 years or something like that, and it's just I don't spend much time doing it anymore, so there's no point in it taking up all the space that it is.
And I completely understand. Sometimes you have to give up one thing or another. I know I've struggled with bits and aspects of my life. So yeah. So no disrespect there.
Yeah. So if you want to buy a screen printing shop, you let me know, and I'll ship it out to Salt Lake for you.
I think I'll pass. On that one. But, well, it's been tough to fit your entire life into, a little podcast episode. But I've enjoyed chatting with you. I've enjoyed, hopefully, listening. If you've listened this far in the interview, everyone's learned something new about Eric.
Yeah. Dude, I enjoy it. Like, I think you did a hell of a job cramming that into 2 hours.
It has been a couple hours here that we've chatted. What is there like a motto or a piece of advice that Eric tomorrow would leave with the listeners? Some sort of piece of advice. I
guess I don't know. Like do stuff that makes you happy and is a creative outlet for you. Like I can't stress that enough, and I can't suggest it highly enough. Like you need to I know that a lot of people just they go to work and they get into that grind and that's all they do, but like you need to do something that's a creative outlet. Like I've seen a lot of people that I know, they think that growing up means that you got to give up doing the shit that's fun and that is a creative outlet for you, but that's not true. Like you need it now more than ever.
And somebody who I agree 100% that you need that. So anything else you want to talk about, Eric, before we close this? I mean, I think, again, and I'm sure we missed a lot, and I apologize if we did, but it
was fun, man. It was, it is what it is what it is. And I actually hate that phrase, but it was what it was in this point in time. Like it was a great conversation I got to have with Chris, and you got to ask me questions, and it was fun. It was, I went into this going like, this is going to be weird. Like this is on my feed and someone's asking me questions, and it's, maybe on your feed too, but like it's a weird scenario for me to put myself into, but like I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate the chance to chat with you. So I'm going to let you get to bed. Say hello to Hope. Say hello to Troy. And say hello to Brock. I know he doesn't know me, but
I'll tell him. I'll say Chris Holofield says hello. Well, thank you again, Chris. It means a lot that you would do this. And then if you're listening to this and you haven't checked out I Am Salt Lake, you're doing yourself a massive disservice.
Well, thank you very much. We'll end it there.
Yeah. Well, thanks again.
All right.
I'm gonna stop the recording there.